Uh, Griffin, Sarah, Kristen, John, myself on the line, and I believe I have everyone. Okay. Moving on to our agenda for the day. First item of business is public comment. I believe we do have one submitted early on the roll. So we do have Miss Caroline and Mr. Jacob, who you have 3 minutes of the agenda. So Caroline and Jacob, you have the floor.
Good evening to the commission, and thank you so much for having us tonight. We're looking forward to kind of sharing our situation and receiving some guidance from the commission. So again, my name is Caroline, and I'm here with my co-tenant, Jacob. We are tenants at 1200 North Wayne Street in Arlington, Unit F, and we're here kind of sharing our situation as we represent ourselves. But before we just summarize our situation, I'd just like to let the commission know we sent along the following documents for your attention. We sent over a cover letter summarizing, as well as a timeline and our copy of our lease. So with that, just to share a little bit more about our situation, we leased a unit that has been infested with mice, cockroaches, and other kind of miscellaneous insects before we assumed our occupancy on mid to late September, so September 22nd. The lease began on August 15th, and it had been an issue since the discovery of our infestation very shortly after the lease start, approximately 5 days or so. And then we didn't assume occupancy of the unit until about a month later, so that the property management company could rectify some of the issues that we had notified them of and address them and correct the deficiencies as well. So some of the steps that we have taken, we notified the property management company of the infestation upon discovery, and that was in August of this year. We also expressed concern about kind of pesticide use in our premises, understanding that that sometimes is kind of the route necessary for these types of infestations. We've also used and executed some of our self-help measures. We put peppermint oil and other traps ourselves. We've met with an exterminator multiple times over the course of the last few months and scheduled bi-weekly follow-up treatments to do that. We feel we've allowed for a reasonable time for kind of the property management company to address this situation while we met with those exterminators. And then obviously the situation unfortunately still persists here now. It's November 2024 of this year. And we're kind of at our, we just don't want to live with these vermin anymore. So we have requested kind of a lease amendment with a month-to-month situation at no cost, because the penalty has been suggested to us, and we have been denied on that request. And then we went back and asked for just to terminate the lease while giving a 30-day notice without a penalty, and that has not been, that has also been denied. So essentially, we're just asking the commission here to help us resolve or give us advice on this matter to kind of enact withdrawal from the parties of this lease with no penalty to the tenants, and the course of the uninhabitability of the unit we're finding within the VRLTA code. We would appreciate guidance in that way as well, and then just the 30-day termination clause as well. So I think with that, we appreciate your comments and questions.
Okay, thank you, Caroline and Jacob. We received some of your materials earlier. I didn't, probably it was scrubbed your release and some of the photos you sent along. We did receive your timeline and your cover letter.
Okay.
If you can resend that to Rolda, that would be great. But I'll open the floor to commissioners. I see Commissioner Kristen has a question for you.
Yes, I wonder, is this a townhome or an apartment community? I looked at the street view and I couldn't quite tell. Are you renting from an individual landlord, or are you renting from an apartment community?
Sorry, ma'am, I think our connection broke a little bit. I just want to confirm, you asked if we were renting from a townhome or apartment community, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yes, it is. I would describe it as a townhome complex. It is a condo within that. It's a series of 3 buildings that are, I believe at one time, all townhomes, but our unit specifically has essentially been what it looks like to be split in half. So maybe at one point a townhome with four units or spaces, and we only occupy the top half of that townhome, excuse me.
Okay. And it's my assumption that this property management company, ARM, they're managing multiple communities, apartments. Do you know by chance if they're occupying more, managing more within your complex?
Yes, we do believe it is all of them. So there's 3, like I mentioned, there's 3 buildings, and it is our understanding that they manage the whole property.
With about 4 to 6
Yeah,
units.
there's about, exactly, thank you, Jacob. There's 4 to 6 units per building.
Okay, I asked those questions because I needed to be sure that the VRLTA applied. There are rules based on the number. If you only rent 1 or 2 units, different rules apply. But sounds like VRLTA does apply. So that was sorry for some follow-up questions already. I know Sarah, you've got your hand up too. But when you didn't occupy the apartment for that month, were you paying rent?
Yes. So we had signed the lease as of we signed the lease on August 14th. We started the lease on August 15th, and we did not move in until I believe it was September 22nd. And yes, we were paying rent that whole period.
Okay. All right. Well, I have a few more questions, but I'm going to let somebody else go for a little bit.
Okay, Sarah?
Yeah, thanks for sharing this. I'm really, really sorry that y'all are going through this. As someone who's experienced mice in their apartment, I know it's very unsettling and not fun to live with. Were y'all the ones paying to meet with the exterminators, or was that being paid for by the property management company?
I apologize, Sarah. I think we're having issues on our connection again. So something was being paid for by the property management. I'm sorry, I missed the first time.
Were you paying for the exterminator yourselves, Caroline, or were out of pocket, or was the management agency doing that for you?
Absolutely. And first of all, Sarah, thank you again for your support. We appreciate that. It has been a very emotional process for us. So really, really appreciate that. But yes, so initially when we submitted the maintenance request for, first we saw the cockroaches. And so we had first asked to address that. And the property management company offered to send out someone, but it reminded us that it was in our lease that it was tenant responsibility to take care of that. And we understood, but kind of also explained that it was a situation we inherited. It was not something that really we had brought with us. And again, we had not even fully moved into the unit at that point. But they out of their expenses did supply the first exterminator visit and paid for that. And then following that, they ended up putting down pesticide during that visit because of what we saw. And then they were the ones that identified all of the mouse entry points, the droppings all over the unit as well. And then so we took it upon ourselves to, out of our peace of mind, just schedule those biweekly follow-up visits. So since the first visit that they paid for on September 4th, we've had biweekly visits at no charge to either party, just because it's within a 90-day window of this company. They have recently, just for the commission's awareness, sent out as of, I think it was the 11th, a new exterminator as well, just because it is my belief that so much time has passed, but they have paid for that as well on the second one. So no cost aside from the mitigation efforts we enacted at the beginning with all the traps we purchased and otherwise, but the actual exterminator visits were not ours.
Gotcha. And then just one more question, I'll turn it over to Andrew, but did they give you a reason for denial of either the lease, the month-to-month request, or just the goal of breaking the contract? Did they tell you why they denied that?
Hello. Well, I believe they denied it because they keep claiming it is not uninhabitable, but we are trying to argue otherwise, and it has been very much negatively affecting our day-to-day lives, like, from having to meet with pest control on holidays and weekends and just been nonstop. working on trying to address the issue, spending our own time and money because we felt they were taking too long. But so essentially they're claiming is habitable, but even though we moved into an existing infestation along, I believe a detail that was also left out, there was some mold we had identified from the start. So it took them a little while to address. But they eventually set cleaners and
so that has been addressed.
But that was also another that was what we moved into.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for that. And then sorry, I did just have one more question. Do y'all have photo evidence of the droppings or the vermin or any of that? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. We have photos of pretty much the whole journey.
There was droppings when we moved in. We identified them in multiple spots. We cleaned up some ourselves, and then they sent some cleaners down to clean up others, and then we found new droppings since then. And we've also been able to catch on sticky traps multiple different types of cockroaches, along with a bunch of other insects. And
and just to follow up from that as well, we have just in terms of the photographs and when we had asked for the month to month, just because it has been so long again, and it's obviously an unsettling emotional experience, we kind of asked, what the timeline would be and like how long, we would kind of be living in this situation, and they aren't really able to give us a definitive time of when the situation will be eradicated or remedied. And so we've also essentially learned throughout this process that we did not receive a clear understanding of for how long, but that the unit was empty prior to our occupancy. So again, we don't know. They did not share specific details, but not sure kind of what that looks like. But again, I'm happy to provide the commission with the photos that we have in our possession as well. If that's helpful, more than happy to supply that.
Caroline and Jacob, have you been dealing with the same individual as a point of contact with the management agency the entire time, or have you spoken with
for the most part,
higher level general
can you hear
manager?
us? I apologize.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you for confirming. So it has varied in that they do have a couple, I'd say maybe like offices. So they have a they have a maintenance office, and then they have a property management arm, and then they have otherwise. So when we moved in, we were assigned a property manager who, to our surprise, I believe had recently departed. So I would say upon our maybe first week process of moving in, we were given a new point of contact, and we have been dealing with that same property manager, but we've contacted them a number of times, even over the course of the last week or so, and are still getting the same response and kind of just standing. We're not moving forward in any way.
Okay. Kristen, did you have any follow-up questions?
Well, I really did. I think I have questions in just a statement. I think that, one, you're experiencing something that's just, not acceptable. And the biggest challenge that you will face in any situation like this is what you deem to be uninhabitable and what your landlord deem obviously aren't the same. And it's very hard to define. And it's hard to define what an infestation is, period. But the Virginia landlord tenant law very clearly covers you in the event that the landlord is, has given you a home that you moved into that is not, that is infested. So I think if I were you all, I would try to go back to the varying entities that helped you with the pest control, or the lack of anyway, and get them to say they deem it to be infested. And that, based on the fact that, you rented the apartment on this day, you moved in on this day, here are the photos, here, blah, 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 blah. And then you could go to the magistrate and, put your money in escrow and go through the proper channels and refuse to pay rent until it's remedied, and or until a judge says it's not an infestation. But I don't think I think you're gonna have a hard time winning, regrettably, because it doesn't sound like these are very fair landlords, because there is no definition in the VRLTA about what infestation means. And so you're going to need a judge to tell you. But maybe the landlord, if you went that far and you put it in an assertion, maybe that might get the landlord saying, whoa, 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 you know, we don't want to get a lawyer or get our lawyer over there. We don't want this to go on the record. Maybe that might be enough, but you're going to have to get a professional to say it's infested, because that's what the judge is going to ask for if it ever got to court.
David?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like you've communicated pretty thoroughly with the property manager, but at this point, you need to make like a final demand, do a demand letter. I think Kristen's advice is perfect here. And so really what you want to do is threaten to go to the magistrate to withhold rent. Money talks, that's the thing that the landlord will respond to, along with, if you can get it from the exterminator that you've been working with, that it's an infestation in their work, in their, in a written report. To achieve maximum effect, you could hire an attorney. I don't know that you need to start there. You can make a demand letter. You seem very organized. You've done a good job presenting to us. So I think that's where I would start. Go to the exterminator, try and get them to say it's an infestation. If they don't, you could consider, before sending the demand letter, talking to another exterminator. But in the demand letter, I'd be very clear that, if they don't let you out of the lease, that you're going to go to the magistrate. And, this is the sort of thing where if you make a threat, you have to be willing to follow through on it. Otherwise, you have to accept sort of the condition that you are, enduring. Because I think, not having seen the lease, I don't know all the terms, but, breaching the lease, it sounds like there's a penalty, and that's something you consider too, weighing that against, the cost of hiring a lawyer potentially. So those are just some things to think about.
Caroline and Jacob, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I'd first just like to thank all of the commissioners for your advice and guidance so far. But just as a follow-on, a couple additional details with your advice. With both of the exterminator visits, now the two separate companies, we have reached out and gotten reports of their visits. The most recent one says that there is a specific German cockroach. Again, I can't remember if it's exactly the word infestation, but definitely part of the treatment proposal. And then with that, the exterminator most recently had shared with us that they were instructed not to provide us with the reports, obviously, as the situation has, I think, evolved. So that is kind of what we had received in information most recently, but we do appreciate all of the guidance, and we did send the lease over, but we're happy to, again, just kind of recover what specific documents you guys would like from us. I'm happy to send those back as well. To your point, finally, just about breaking the lease and weighing that against kind of the lawyer fees, we absolutely are taking that into consideration. We have absolutely, again, debated following through kind of and what that means for us. And that's kind of what has gone through our minds since, the start of this unfortunate situation. And right now the options they're giving us are one, 60-day notice with a penalty fee, which would be over, I think, $8,100, which is just not in the realm of our feasibility. Or the other option they're providing to us is to find a new tenant to take over with a smaller fee associated, understandably. But again, in just my heart, I'm not comfortable to doing that, and not disclosing it to the same situation we were unfortunately given. So that is just kind of what we're faced with right now to share with the commission.
Okay, Kristen and Sarah.
Yeah, okay. So the in any of the reports that you have seen, whether with your own, do they note how many cockroaches that they have seen? And or do you have photos on those tacky boards where you can demonstrate how many there are? And are those things timestamped? Because, you know, if you don't want to hire a lawyer, you know, it'd be really great to say, you know, on August 20th, when we walked into the apartment, there were 37 cockroaches. And, you know, here are pictures of them. And then when the exterminator came on this day, you know, he or she found X number. Because, you know, I don't think anybody's going to think 4 or 5 is an infestation, though I know that 4 or 5 is 4 or 5 too many. I think you've got to be, you know, well into the double digits.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Kristen. To your point, yes, absolutely. That is why we have been keeping a detailed timeline for our sanity and just to keep a track of kind of everything that is processed and progressed. We do have photos of the timestamps, and that is honestly our saving grace when we're going back and verifying that our timeline's accurate. We had first seen them on August 20th, and that was 5 days after lease start. They were coming out of our sinks. And then again, throughout the meetings with the exterminators, we just continued to discover more infestation with the mice and droppings everywhere. And we've cleaned up a number of them. And then as well as the sticky boards, yes, we have them all around our unit, and we are tracking a number. I think right now we're near 15 of them, I think we've found, which again, that's just what we've seen and been able to track, but they have been identified by the exterminators as 2 different kinds as well. So that's as much as we know so far.
Got it. Thank you.
Sarah?
Andrew, David, I don't know, I'll defer to y'all, but is this a situation in which we could communicate with the landlord and the property manager about our concerns? It seems like we're in agreement here that this is a problem. And I know we've communicated with landlords and property managers in the past. It also strikes me from reading this that y'all have only communicated with the property manager, and perhaps the landlord doesn't know that this is an issue. And if they did, it would be a different situation.
I would defer the role to David, but I think we could probably raise that we've been brought this issue, and we could inquire about further information. But since we're not a party to it,
I would say send us the lease. I think that's the thing we're missing right now. Oh, and the photos. But to the the point that Sarah is making about who this is directed to, oftentimes the landlord never hears about this issue. It just goes straight to the property manager. So if you do intend to do a demand letter, then I would suggest strongly that you address it to the landlord directly, CC the property manager. You haven't gotten anywhere with them. The other thing that I'll say on the demand letter is collective action is always better than singular action. It sounds like you have neighbors that might be dealing with similar issues, and if you talk with them, you may be able to double or triple your voice essentially to the landlord. But I know this is we can't spend all night on this one issue, so I think we should probably move on. But I thank you for coming.
Yeah, just in closing, David, thank you, and the rest of the commission, thank you for your guidance. We truly appreciate it. We have definitely been in contact with our neighbors as well, and we'll circle back with them. But again, we're open to any guidance you recommend. We really appreciate that. I will absolutely follow up with the lease again and provide the timeline and photos just for commission review. I'm happy to do that. But again, thank you so much for everyone's time. We really appreciate you hearing our case.
Great. Thank you so much, Caroline. Is there any other public comments? Hearing none, moving on. We have now Brian Bracey and Alice, I believe, is also on the line. If not, from J.R. Lynch. Hi,
Yes.
Brian.
Hey, good evening, Andrew, and good evening to the rest of the commission. We don't have Alice this evening, but I am supported by James Finley, our Senior VP of Development. And so we just wanted to take this opportunity. We are seeking approval of the relocation plan for what we're calling phase 2. That's going to cover buildings 12 through 16, as well as buildings 47 and 48. We presented before the commission, I believe it was October 9th, and received some comments and questions. So just kind of wanted to go through our responses for that. And then if anyone has any additional questions after that, we can answer those as well. So I believe the combination came from maybe some residents that were on the call, but also some of the commission members asked what is being done to mitigate parking concerns on the property due to a reduction in available parking spaces to accommodate construction vehicles and safety cordons. And then on a related note, if ample parking is not available to be, okay, I guess this is Hector presenting this. It's not able to be provided on the property, will the county provide temporary residential permits for the predetermined duration? And so for that, we think that daily construction, or we know that daily construction will align with the residents' work schedules for these phases, and honestly for the wider site in general, and that construction vehicles will only be on site during the day, but overnight the plan is to have a program in place that basically prevents non-residents from occupying residents' parking spaces. And so that'll be coordinated with the GC, or the general contractor, and our on-site property management team, Gates Hudson, to minimize those parking impacts. The second question that was posed to us was, how many residents will be displaced? And I just want to, provide some clarification here. None of the residents will be displaced unless you just voluntarily decide not to come back to the property. But a total of 213 residents, 129 in phase 3. So that's in buildings 12 through 16, and then 84 residents in phase 4, or buildings 47 and 48 will be temporarily located on site during the duration of the renovation. And then there was an additional, I guess, related question to that about, residents who elect not to relocate on the property, would they still be vested residents of the relocation plan? Answer to that is no. Residents who opt for the relocation payment instead of on-site relocation that we offer are not going to remain vested residents of the relocation plan. And then lastly, there was a question about the updated URA fixed residential moving cost schedule. Like I think the commissioner had brought this up, I was unable to find an updated 2024 on the HUD website as well. So I think that we're going to coordinate with Hector in order to request that from HUD, so that we do have those updated numbers to ensure that relocation payments are in line with that. And then I believe that's it. So any further questions regarding what we discussed here or the previous relocation plan?
Okay, the floor is open to commissioners. David?
Yeah, Hector, I just wanted to confirm that it's your recommendation that they've complied with all the requirements.
Yes, they did.
Okay, I don't have anything further.
Is there a motion on the floor if there's no other further discussion?
So moved.
The motion has been moved to approve of the plan. So is it seconded?
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. And the Barcroft plan is approved. Hector and Rolda, please notify the county board. Okay,
right.
Is there any other questions on this? Okay, if not, moving on to approval of the minutes of the October meeting. Is there any?
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Enjoy.
Bye.
Moving on to the approval of the October minutes. Is there any questions or discussion on them? No?
I'd like to move to accept the meeting minutes, and I'd also like to note for the record that it's nice to not run the meeting for once and to make the first motion.
I second the motion.
Motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Minutes passed by unanimous consent. Please have that noted into the record.
I'd also like to
Moving
note for the
on.
record, Andrew's doing a fantastic job. And the reason I'm not sharing today is because I'm neck deep in a trial this week, so I've had very little time outside of it. Great job, Andrew.
Thank you. So moving on to our discussion portion is subcommittee planning for 2025. I know we got into this during our last month's meeting regarding when we passed the memorandum to the county board regarding the most recent subcommittee. And we just started discussing evictions. So that started some conversation. And so we wanted to take some time this meeting to discuss planning for 2025 and also to just start planning and seeing what else we would like to do. So opening the floor to the commissioners. And so, Sarah, I know you wanted to possibly reconstitute the resolution assessment subcommittee with a focus on geared towards evictions.
I think my interest was not on evictions. It was on finding some way to share information publicly about how many complaints we get about certain landlords and property managers. I remember us discussing a Gold Star program in the past. I'm personally uncomfortable leading that because I don't think I would be in the right headspace to do that. And I am like fundamentally, I would want it to be a stick and not a carrot kind of thing. So keep that in mind when we're thinking about whether I should be chairing that subcommittee. But I do know that there's been some conversation about somehow assigning value, or I don't know, as a tenant, I would love to see some place where I could say, oh, ARM has been, neglecting and to manage an infestation of cockroaches at this apartment. I might not want to rent from somewhere that uses ARM as a property management place. Like that feels like that would be something that would be useful to tenants. Obviously, there would be like a mechanism for not just like slandering, property managers or landlords, and we could think through that. But that's kind of what, if I'm a tenant, I would want to see. So that's my 2 cents.
Any other thoughts?
I mean, I think the main question is who feels strongly about helping, build this potential program, whether it ends up being carrot stick, or as a typical middle roader, would suggest a little bit of both. I think that, it's important to have somebody leading it who feels strongly about it. For instance, I think Andrew did an excellent job, with the last subcommittee, and that's not me suggesting him for this one unless he wants to, but to have somebody to lead and guide it through, a number of meetings until we come up with a recommendation or decide maybe there isn't a recommendation, but just the exploration process, being, somewhat interested in that and willing to take that time outside of regular commission time is important. I don't know that we need to go in with like a perfectly formulated plan. We've talked quite a bit about this in, ideas related to this in the past. And so I think it's mostly about someone taking on the mantle and then a couple other people joining along to help brainstorm and, talk with others and move forward.
And another idea I was also discussed this with David is a subcommittee geared towards just looking into the relocation guidelines, since I know we're getting a lot of them. And especially we have probably another few phases of the bar crawl coming up as well. And just looking into them and updating them, and also looking into our charter and just seeing if there's any updates that are needed, just in making sure we're in lockstep with current trends and what other neighboring jurisdictions are doing as well. Rhoda?
You're muted, Rhoda.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Just a couple of comments. The very first item on the Gold Star program, yes, we certainly want to see if there's any precedent. Well, precedent is probably not the right word, but other jurisdictions have done in that regard. And also, what is the basis that we're starting off from? Because, I mean, the information that we collect when we receive complaints, I'm not sure, Hector can probably speak to that in terms of the actual recording of the property that is being, reported against or upon. So as you all know, the major properties such as AHC, Apple, Wesley, whatever, we will more than likely take care of those. But in terms of private landlords, smaller landlords, and all of that, I mean, if there's a violation such as that's related to a code, we would certainly forward that or have them contact code enforcement to see what can be done. And also otherwise advise them on VRLT and what their particular course of action might be based on VRLTA. So, I mean, really outside of that, I'm not sure what we would be. I think we want to be really careful, in terms of putting up a list of not so good landlords. So we want to, really have our ducks in a row and have a clear idea of what it is we're trying to get at with that. And folks on here who are probably a lot more knowledgeable about the legal aspects of those kinds of things, they want to bear that in mind as well. So that's just my 2 cents on that. And then there was another item. The relocation guidelines were actually, as you know, David, those were revised. I want to say, Hector, help me out here, was 2019, 2020, 21?
2018.
Oh, it's been since 18. Okay. So yeah, so if
There
want to
was,
look at
yeah, Rhoda, you're right. Your memory's right, though. I think in the last 3 years, definitely since I've been on the commission, though, there was an effort to do the checklist with the relocation plan, but I don't think we ever looked at revising the underlying guidelines. So I think those are separate efforts. But yeah, I mean, we have looked at them in that way before, although I think that was a staff-led effort, not a commission-led effort.
Okay, interesting.
It is a staff under the agreement of the commission. When we started the last revision, it was requested by a previous chair of the commission that came and indicated that he found that all relocation guidelines didn't concur with the Uniform Relocation Act schedule. And that was the reason that the commission asked the board to review the relocation guidelines and the board instructed personnel to review the guidelines along with the commission, and then it was presented to the board for approval. It's a process that took approximately a year with all the discussions and findings and investigations. So if there is any point specific that needs to be revised or there's questions on that, commissioners can review and maybe discuss it and then present it to the board for to ask for a review of the relocation guidelines.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it's an interesting idea to look at the relocation guidelines. I mean, it is like one of our primary, like, sort of, I guess, statutory, or I don't know what you call it, but it's one of the main things that we have like hard approval over, as opposed to like soft recommendation or advice to the board. And it's probably, I mean, it's probably useful for us to take a closer look at it. Yeah.
If the commissioners want, I'll send or they can download the last relocation guidelines. Maybe they can read it, and then it can be discussed in a meeting to see which points they want to discuss, and then make a point on addressing that.
Yeah, I think, and what I would suggest for now is maybe, Hector, you give us a presentation at the next meeting, which I believe is going to be in January, right? So if we got a presentation on, what has been revised previously in 2018, talk a little bit about, common problems you see. Just give us a presentation on you're the one who deals with the companies most often, and you can give us a lot of insight and maybe some recommendations, if you have any, about what you think might be changed. And then we can decide whether this requires like a full-blown subcommittee effort to dive deeper, or if there are some things that we could, take a look at just within our normal meeting schedule.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other points of discussion?
I think that still just leaves leadership for let's codename it the Gold Star Project for now, since we keep coming back on that fun term.
Crickets.
I'm happy to be on that subcommittee. I do not want to lead. I can't lead a subcommittee that's called the Golds. Like, I can't do that. Sorry.
Let's do this. Who would be willing to be on that subcommittee? All right, Sarah, Griffin, John. Okay. And who?
It's Sarah, Griffin, and John that volunteered.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's just talk offline with Andrew. Let's set up an email and talk offline with those folks.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Any other points of discussion? Okay, moving on. Rhoda and Hector, any staff updates?
No staff updates this evening. There's some other stuff going on, but nothing that directly affects us. We did get 2 volunteers for the DHS strategic planning exercise. There'll be Andrew and John. So, first and second, now the order. And so hopefully we'll get an update on that when that is done. It's a short-term exercise. They only plan to have focus groups. And so November, December. So we get a report on that. Other than that, things are fairly quiet as we get to the end of the year.
Okay, Sarah, you're muted.
Sorry, maybe I missed something, but is Thomas Potter a new member of the commission?
Just a
Not
general
quite.
member of the public at the moment.
Okay, okay, cool. Hi, Thomas. Nice to see you. I just didn't, I just want to make sure.
Hello, everybody. Just joining as an observer for tonight.
Okay. So Rhoda, just to confirm, no, there's no December meeting, correct? You're muted.
I'm so sorry about that tonight. Okay,
You-
things are not
That's all
working.
right. It's a virtual
Um,
meeting. It's all right.
So now I was just saying that's entirely up to the commission. We don't have any pressing matters. We've got a couple of things lined up, but nothing that certainly can't wait. Nothing that requires a vote, a decision to be made. So that's your call.
Okay. Well, I guess if everyone on this call for a consensus, we do not. If we won't convene until January of 2025. Head nods. Yep. I see.
So
Okay.
moved.
Okay, perfect. We won't convene unless there's an emergency.
Unless there's some emergency, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Rhoda, just issue that cancellation for the December meeting then.
Okay.
Okay.
We can take note of that.
Okay, well, if there's a motion to adjourn until January 25 on the floor.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion is moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Happy
Awesome.
holidays,
Well,
everybody.
Yes, happy holidays. Enjoy
Yeah.
your Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Great
Yeah.
job,
Happy
Andrew.
holidays.
Thank
See
you.
you all next year.
Good job, Andrew.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.